make this particular intervention. I will start by introducing members of the legal team. The entire legal team is here, which is quite a big legal team, but some of the people are not on the table here. As you might know, the team consists of me as the leader of the team, and I have what I call my co-pilot, Advocate Masuku SC. We have Ms. Advocate Ms. Kofa, who is... Okay, I don't... It's fine, thanks. I was saying, yes, Advocate Masuku SC, and then there's Advocate Kofa. She's held up, she's on the way, but held up in some engagement. We have Advocate Butelezi right there. Raise your hand. And we have Advocate Tulu, who's also had a bereavement, unfortunately, and had to go back to KZN. Am I leaving anyone in the advocates? No. Then the attorneys are Mr. Tusini, Mr. Ntanga, who's here, and Mr. Nidenga, who's here. As you might know, we're collectively, as the team, handling quite a number of matters, more than 10 separate matters that we're dealing with, and that's what we were discussing. My task is quite easy. It is really to extend the apology of the former president. He is here because that consultation is here in the Johannesburg area. And last night when the decision was taken to respond to the commission as what is going to be done by Mr. Manyi, we had some interaction with the Correctional Services authorities. Maybe I should start by saying the reason why he's not here is because we have advised him not to come due to the parole conditions, just to take a particular precaution around that issue. And as I was saying, last night we had some interactions with some of the relevant officials, and we obtained the relevant permission for him to come here for as long as he was not going to participate or engage with the media. I think that was the agreement we had reached with them. But this morning, upon our own reflection on the parole conditions and to avoid unnecessary hassles, we advised him that he should not attend. And that really is the reason why he's not here. He would have wanted to be here, certainly would have wanted to be here. And I think the last thing I'd like to say is that after this, we are going to go back to him and continue with the consultation that we were holding. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay. Mine is very short.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Mine is very, very short. Just to let you know that indeed my dad wanted to be here with his favorite people, the media, but due to circumstances he can't. He does send his greetings to you guys and to everyone watching as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Advocate Mpofu and Dudu. And once again, sincere apologies for starting late. Right. This statement, the heading we've got here is President Zuma's foundation statement in response to the unlawful and irrational state capture report. This is the foundation's report to the unlawful and highly irrational report of Chief Justice Zondo, who in almost 4.5 years dismally failed to find evidence beyond innuendos and conjecture to prove that His Excellency President Zuma had abdicated his executive authority to the Guptas and was thus captured by them. Instead, Justice Zondo dabbled into areas best suited to be dealt with by either the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks, or the newly established Investigative Directorate within the National Prosecuting Authority, NPA. Given that it's almost half a decade since this investigation began, the Foundation deemed it appropriate to quickly remind South Africans of the pertinent history around this inquiry and to put everything into proper context. As you will know, the Constitution of this country, on Section 84, on powers and functions of President, is unambiguous on Section 84, subsection 2, paragraph F, which reads thus, open quotes, the President is responsible for appointing commissions of inquiry, close quote. There is nothing in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa that gives the Chief Justice a role to select the chairperson of the commission. But that law was broken right in front of our eyes. His Excellency President Zuma was reduced to a clerical function of appointing Justice Zondo, who was selected by the then Chief Justice. The jury is still out as to why the initially chosen chair of the commission, Justice Desai, was mysteriously changed on the day of appointment. In summary, we hold the view that given the unlawfulness of how this inquiry was set up, it cannot be that its findings and recommendations are lawful. The report is therefore a classical case of a fruits of a poison tree. Then we deal with the conduct of Justice Zondo himself during the inquiry. To say Chief Justice Zondo is unworthy of being called a judge would be a serious understatement. Chief Justice Zondo fails the most basic of the tests, even of the most junior judge. No self-respecting judge worthy of that title sits in a case where he or she is directly affected and demonstrably conflicted in order to settle personal scores. Even during his recent media conference, when he was handing over the report to the equally conflicted president, who is under investigations by the Hawks and Public Protector, amongst others, he failed to show remorse when responding to journalists' questions whether, when looking back, he would do anything differently. The record will show that during the deliberations in the commission, Justice Zondo, like all other witnesses, deposed to an affidavit where he denied his subsequently well-established proximity to and relationship with President Zuma. Justice Zondo's affidavit was made in response and in rebuttal to the statement by President Zuma that they were previously friends. Justice Zondo deliberated on the two affidavits and decided to dismiss the submission of President Zuma in favor of his own affidavit. If that is not travesty of justice by the now most senior judge in South Africa, then we don't know what is the meaning of that term. Without digressing, it is worth mentioning that before the Judicial Service Commission, Justice Zondo contradicted his statement about his proximity to President Zuma. In response to a question about his political meddling, he tried to justify his reason for the visit, but instead what we remember is that he said, open quote, "I knew him, it might have been more than 20 years, something, something, something," close quote. He also miraculously could not remember what they had discussed when they met more than once in KZN hotels. It didn't end there. His Excellency President Zuma, a citizen who fought for the democracy of this country, again asked Chief Justice Zondo to recuse himself so that a neutral person could receive his submission. No was the answer. The South African media and judiciary instead entrenched the false narrative that President Zuma, by insisting on an unbiased decision maker, was refusing to go to the commission. For this, he was jailed without a trial at the instigation of the so-called Zondo Commission. Why would President Zuma, a law-abiding citizen who has been willingly attending courts, including criminal courts, for almost 20 years, suddenly and for no reason refuse to attend a toothless inquiry investigation, I beg your pardon, and for no reason refuse to attend a toothless inquiry investigating a phantom thing called state capture? In a further act of bullying and abuse of power, Justice Zondo, who also at the time was Deputy Chief Justice, complained to his subordinates at the Constitutional Court, who also failed to direct him to the rules of his own commission, who should have told him to complain to the police or approach the lower court. Instead, he approached the Constitutional Court directly and urgently in 2020 under the false pretenses that the commission was left with only 2 months to finish its work. 2 years later, then thereafter, the commission was still continuing and eventually unlawfully issued its final report after the date determined by the court for its expiry. It was therefore Zondo who acted in contempt of court. History will show that all this resulted in President Zuma being the first and the only South African citizen who is a victim of a constitutional court-ordered incarceration and imprisonment or detention without trial, even the opportunity to plead guilty or not guilty. He will also go down as the only prisoner who never had the opportunity to mitigate and appeal his sentence. This is what the media and apartheid apologists called the best display of equality before the law. Why are we here today? Firstly, to engrave in the minds of South Africans that equality before the law is an object yet to be achieved in South Africa. His Excellency President Zuma was and continues to be selectively ill-treated by the legal system of South Africa. It would be wrong to upgrade our legal system into a justice system. There is still no fair justice in South Africa. We are yet to see and experience the blind justice system for which people like President Zuma sacrificed so much, including long-term imprisonment in the Robben Island and life itself. Turning to the unlawful report of the Unlawful Commission, it is predictably full of gossip, innuendo, and conjecture. It is very short on concrete evidence. It's really not clear what exactly did Justice Zondo and his team actually do for almost half a decade and 2 billion rand later. This commission has simply passed the buck to the NPA to do the investigations which it was mandated to do. The report is characterized by bias in favor of the faction that is supportive of President Ramaphosa. Chief Justice Zondo himself could not hold back his political and factional support of President Ramaphosa. He praised him for taking over from President Zuma and by default impugned the integrity of Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and all those who voted for her by adding that, open quote, more damage could have been done to the National Treasury, close quote, had she won at Nazareth. On what basis and on which evidence of or submission made at the commission did Chief Justice Zondo conclude basically that Dr. NDZ would have done the damage that he imagined? What kind of a judge is this? This was a gratuitous insult not only to a candidate who narrowly lost by a mere 179 votes, but to hundreds of thousands of ANC members who supported a candidacy for president of the ANC and of the country. Unlike Mr. Zondo, we will never know what a missed opportunity her presidency would have been to the majority of black South Africans. So where to from here? Following further reckless and irresponsible comments by Chief Justice Zondo, His Excellency President Zuma has briefed his legal team, amongst other things, to report Chief Justice Zondo to the Judicial Service Commission within the next week or two. Specifically, the JSC will be asked to investigate the grossly unlawful comments by Chief Justice Zondo, who took it upon himself to comment on matters pending before the courts. Chief Justice Zondo is on record saying, open quote, Mr. Fraser, who was the National Commissioner for Correctional Services, granted him, meaning Zuma, medical parole under questionable circumstances, close quote. The specific issue of whether granting parole was appropriate or questionable is yet to be heard in the Supreme Court of Appeal on the 15th of August 2020, to the full knowledge of Chief Justice Zondo. So he knows this. Thereafter, and irrespective of the outcome, the matter is most likely to end up in the Constitutional Court, presided over by Zondo himself. As the foundation, we are totally convinced that the Chief Justice was giving a coded message to the Supreme Court of Appeal to rule in a manner that would confirm what he has unilaterally declared as questionable circumstances. We, however, hope that this time around, the SCA will not allow itself to be bullied into unlawful and unconstitutional conduct. The JSC will also be tasked to investigate the unwarranted insults by the Chief Justice to His Excellency President Zuma and the people of South Africa. Further to political meddling, Chief Justice Zondo decided to extend his scope of work and propose a system of how South Africans should elect their president. In his utterances, which were not informed by any submission to the Commission, he discouraged the party system and instead he pronounced in support of a system where the president is directly elected. President Zuma has also instructed his legal team to accelerate the ongoing review of Justice Zondo's refusal to recuse himself. He has also asked his legal team to look into reviewing the so-called Zondo Commission report insofar as it refers to him. Given all his transgressions and displays of incompetence, the Foundation has also separately instructed its own lawyers to look into the possibility of challenging the unlawful appointment of Justice Zondo as the Chief Justice of South Africa, in spite of his dismal performance at the JSC interviews as observed by millions of South Africans on a national television. An announcement in this regard will be made in due course. Given his bias towards the current president of the ANC, who is the first president of the ANC to drop the electoral support below 50%. It's not clear whether he is forecasting a poor election result of the ANC under his Messiah President Ramaphosa in 2024 if he gets re-elected, or is he trying to prepare South Africans not to vote for the ANC given the woes facing his favorite? Perhaps he fears that a faction hostile to his favorite might emerge. We don't know. These are all political things that Chief Justice Zondo seems very interested in. Chief Justice Mogoeng was recently, rightly or wrongly, punished for his utterances which were deemed to stray beyond the restrictions of his judicial office into the political arena. The same should happen to Chief Justice Zondo. His Excellency President Zuma has therefore briefed his lawyers to ask the JSC to consider appropriate sanctions for Chief Justice Zondo, not only for his irresponsible and highly inappropriate political and factional utterances, but also clearly for putting the judiciary into disrepute. Beyond that, Chief Justice Zondo also ventured to insult President Zuma directly and even mentioned his name as a person basically not worthy of having been twice voted for by millions of South Africans in successive democratic elections. Such hatred for another human being by a sitting judge calls for all-round condemnation. His conduct only serves to vindicate the position adopted by President Zuma, that he could never receive justice in the hands of someone who harbors such deep-seated resentment towards him and his supporters in the ANC and society at large. Finally, it is a view of the Foundation that it was condescending in the extreme for Chief Justice Zondo to think that simply because he personally does not highly rate President Zuma, a political view to which he is entitled as an individual, it must therefore follow that the people of South Africa would be putting themselves at risk if they elected someone like President Zuma, a freedom fighter who is the last president of the ANC to win the electoral support of more than 60%. Chief Justice Zondo is basically finding fault with the 60% of the electorate that voted for the ANC, knowing that His Excellency President Zuma was facing these trumped-up charges. In summary, President Zuma will be requiring the courts and the JSC to separately give a serious look into the following 5 acts of illegality, breaches of the Constitution, and the applicable judicial code of conduct. 1, the exact nature of the historical relationship of President Zuma and Justice Zondo. 2, the refusal by Justice Zondo to recuse himself when he was reasonably requested to do so. 3, the political and factional remarks made by Justice Zondo about the outcomes of the ANC National Conference held at Nasrec in 2017. 4, the gratuitous insults and political references and politically poisoned references to President Zuma in respect of the proposed change in the electoral system. And most seriously, the flagrant abuse of power by Justice Zondo in his irrational and insensitive remarks that the parole decision, which was made at the recommendation of medical experts and in view of President Zuma's ill health, was questionable. By doing so, Justice Zondo was once again seeking to influence the outcome of a pending court decision. Reliance should be placed on the following compulsory provisions of the Judicial Code of Conduct. Article 11, paragraph A of the Code prescribes that, I quote, a judge must, save in the discharge of judicial office, not comment publicly on the merits of any case pending before or determined by that judge or any other court. Article 12, paragraph B of the Code prescribes that, open quote, a judge must not, unless it is necessary for the discharge of judicial office, become involved in any political controversy or activity, close quote. The last one, Article 12D of the Code prescribes that use or lend the prestige of the judicial office to advance the private interests of the judges or others. Beg your pardon, let me repeat that. Article 12D of the Code prescribes that, open quote, use or lend the prestige of the judicial office to advance the private interests of the judge or others. So those are the 5 references that will be relied upon when the complaint is made to the JSC. So what I'm going to do now is to send the statement to everyone in the group. Apologies. Okay, so as you speak now, all of you have it. If your data is working and all that. So you all have it. So apologies for all the inconveniences and all of that. So we'll open the floor now for questions. Yes, sir. I think you are audible here. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't. Is this a smart for the room? I don't even know it's for the room.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good afternoon to the panel. It's Mzwandi Lembeji from the SABC. I've got 2 questions. Number 1, I'm not very clear whether the former president is challenging the entire report or just the aspects. For example, I know he's taking up an issue with Judge Zondo himself. Is this report being taken on review? That's question number 1. Number 2, I think that statement has really been scathing on Judge Zondo. The question I have, Judge Zondo was elevated to be the Deputy Chief Justice by former President Jacob Zuma. What informed that decision then?
Okay. All right, okay. Let me deal so that I don't forget the questions. The first one was whether the whole report. Firstly, if I just had to repeat some parts of the statement, first point is that President Zuma is saying the entire report in the first instance is unlawful. That's the first thing. And then, having said that, he will focus on the parts that deal with him specifically. Yeah. And then on the question of whether what has changed, you got him to, it's life, things happen like this. People disappoint you when you thought this was the best person at the time, but circumstances change. Remember that when that was happening, none of this was at play. This just shows that President Zuma has got no historical hatred for anyone. So he would have taken anybody on first basis and all of that until a person disappoints them in due course. So it just flowed from there. But there was no preconceived ideas. Fair?
Sorry.
How is the team? Oh.
It should be on. I'll just talk loudly.
Yeah.
Carl Cowan from News 24. So 2 questions, please. Mr. Mpofu, which specific parole condition prohibits or raises concern with you to advise the president not to be here today, or the former president? Mr. Mani, you have said in the statement that you're going to argue that the report is the fruit of the poison tree. But President Zuma appointed this commission. The former Chief Justice made him a recommendation, and then Zuma appointed Zondo. How are you going to correlate that with the argument that you've just made? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
No, because I'm not taking notes. All right, let me just deal with this. The rest will probably take them in that way. I think the first thing to remember is that President Zuma made some attempts in the first instance to review that setting up of this commission the way it was set up. And midstream in that process, he was removed from the presidency. And the president that took after him abandoned the case. So it's not like he's just woken up now. It's something that he was trying to deal with at the time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's Ferial Hafaji from the Daily Maverick here. May I also
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
must I wait?
Can you just deal that with the parole part, then we'll come to you.
Thank you, Carl. Okay, I don't have a copy of the conditions in front of me. Sorry, I left it at the consultation. But yeah, okay. My efficient attorney has found it. The specific one, it's if you ever get the document, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bullets. The specific one, I think, is the 6th or 7th bullet, which talks about attending gatherings unless it is at your place of residence. So that's the one that we felt on reflection this morning, that despite the dispensation that we had, might just cause us unnecessary debate. And there was a bit of debate when we were talking to them about whether he could come and not address. But it seems clear to us that the word attend means attend. It doesn't, whether you address or not address. And so we just felt, as I say, it was a precaution on our part, because, you know, otherwise we'll have another big hullabaloo as usual.
Well, as a non-lawyer, I thought this was not a gathering, so I thought he could come. But the lawyer said this is a gathering.
He tried to argue that you don't constitute a gathering.
Yeah.
But we overruled him.
Yeah.
thank you. The Government Gazette, which puts into force the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, carries the name of the former President Jacob Zuma, as Kyla said. I'm wondering if he was forced to sign those into being. And then on the question of medical parole, which I see is the 4th point of the 5 points that you're going to take to the courts, both the Prisons Medical Parole Board and the Medical Parole Appeals Board both felt that the former president was not eligible for parole. They were overridden by Mr. Arthur Fraser, who was the Correctional Services Commissioner at the time.
What are you going to do with them? No. Oh, okay. All right, sorry. On the first one, as to whether President Zuma signed and what, you must remember what happened at the time. At that time, President Zuma was actually not given a choice. The public protector report, Advocate Matonzela, did not give anybody any choice. She said in her report that President Zuma must not be the one selecting the judge. Even the judge that must give him the name must give him a list of one. I mean, what is that? Must give him a list of one. This is what was said. It was argued that he is conflicted and all that. And I don't know whether, in fact, if we, on reflection, to think about that, was that actually not an insult to the judges? Because basically, what that nuance is saying is that whoever President Zuma would choose would actually do things in his favor. That was actually an insult to the judges of this country, but it was allowed to happen, as it were. So President Zuma, I can tell you now, his hand was forced into this thing. He was forced to this thing. He didn't sign it voluntarily. He knew that this is breaking the law. He knew that the constitution of this country does not allow this. Tried to raise this, and everybody was up in arms, as it were. So that's that one. Yeah, can I just finish? On the second issue that you are raising, I think the subtlety that you are missing here is that the term of imprisonment determines which parole board kicks in and what are the powers, as it were, that kick in. In a situation where the person that gets incarcerated, the incarceration period is less than 24 months, the person with the final say there is a commissioner of correctional services. And the one word which most media people miss in this whole story here is the word advisory board. Advisor, capital A, advisory. When you are advising, you don't have an executive authority, you don't have a final say, you advise. The original owner of the decision for 24 months and less is the commissioner. So the commissioner looked at who said what, they looked at who said what, and he made a call. And the call was a mixture of both medical conditions and other conditions, as it were. But he made the call, and that call is in line with his mandate as the commissioner. So absolutely nothing irregular about that. What we're perhaps confusing it with is somebody beyond 24 months, where there is that panel that makes that. It's not the same thing. Don't get confused. Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Dutoy. I'm from News 24. Mr. Manyi, you say that the former president his hand was forced to sign that government gazette that Ferrell just mentioned. But in that government gazette that he signed, he also broadened the terms of reference of this commission. Was he also forced to do that?
Okay. What President Zuma was doing at the time, firstly, he was forced, let me start here, he was forced to appoint this commission the way it was appointed. He wanted the commission. He wanted to appoint the commission. I think here's the subtle difference that you must understand. The issue here that he was forced to do is to appoint the chairperson of somebody else's choice. This is the part he was forced in. But the principle of investigating things and all of that has always been for that things must be investigated. Let's get to the bottom of things. That has been the problem. That has been his stance. He's got no problem with this. The problem was being spoon-fed. You shall appoint this one to do this. He says, but the Constitution says I must do everything myself. That's the part he was forced. So the substance of investigating he didn't have an issue with that. This is why I brought in the terms. So there is no inconsistency there. Any other question?
Junior Kumalo from News 24 as well. You speak about the former president always being willing to have this matter investigated. But by broadening the terms of reference, his own party has come under a lot of fire because of those findings. I know he's been scathing about the findings themselves. What are his thoughts about his own party being found to have been part of the state capture? Does he have any regrets in terms of that?
No, definitely not. President Zuma is a man of the law. President Zuma is dispassionate about wrongness. President Zuma is a person that does not deal with individuals and people. He deals with the issues. If a member is wrong, a member is wrong. President Zuma, that's his position, is a very principled man. So that's no issue at all. Any other question?
I'm being a bit thick. I just want to clarify.
Sure.
Defending the entire
Oh,
Are you taking the entire report on review, or are you taking the very institution of the Commission on Review? I'm just not clear on those
say
two
again,
things,
sorry,
darling.
that was interrupting me. Say again.
So, are you taking the entire report of the Commission on Review, or are you taking the statute or the very institution of the Commission itself on review? I'm just not clear on those 2 points. And also,
Okay.
is your team acting for Mr. Duduzane Zuma as well?
No.
No.
On the last question, no. On the specifics of what is being taken on review are the parts that refer to him. Yeah, those are the parts that refer to him. But don't divorce the issue that he is saying, in fact, these are fruits of a poison tree. He's just perhaps just going through the motions. He's saying the whole thing is rotten in the first place. Let's start there. The whole thing is rotten. The whole thing is unlawful. The whole thing was wrong from the start. It violated the Constitution. And we've given you here the Section 84, subsection that deals with this thing. That this thing was wrong from the start. These are fruits of a poison tree. But once at it, I might as well just let you know that, by the way, of all those, I don't know how many witnesses were there in that commission. I challenge any one of you here and now, tell me which is this evidence that directly linked President Zuma to the Gupta capture? Which one? People, yeah, just deal with that. How?
Yeah.
There's witnesses that appeared before
Yeah.
the commission that testified as an instruction that he gave to remove him to give you that.
Now, let me explain to you. I'm glad that you use this example. In fact, I wrote in another WhatsApp group that Themba Maseko was unfair to South Africa. He allowed a wrong narrative to exist. Here's the situation. I speak here as a former CEO of GCIS. As a former CEO of GCIS, as a GCIS CIO, even as we speak, you do not have the power to decide where expenditure goes. So the notion that Themba Maseko would have done anything differently is actually a false and a dishonest notion, because it couldn't have stopped anybody. The people that decide where the expense goes, it's not GCIS, it's the line departments. GCIS is just a conveyor belt, it's just the final it's just a service department, 2 line departments. In fact, the budget of GCIS to date has never exceeded, 500 million? Has never exceeded that, even as we speak. The kinds of numbers, the billions that people are talking about there, are serious numbers which GCIS has got no control over. It's the other government. And by the way, I explained this to Chief Justice Zondo. But because he's factional Chief Justice Zondo, despite me explaining to him that I can even give you requisitions from line departments where instructions were given by line departments that you shall spend so much with the New Age, you shall spend so much with the Sowetan. Even if, at one point, for instance, just to give an example, one of the human settlement departments, they wanted to put a project on housing. They wanted to put it on business day. I said to them, but business day and RDP houses don't mix. But that department insisted that this aid will go into the business day. And the CEO of GCIS is not the super DG. You don't have overriding powers over other departments. So the impression given by Themba Maseko was really unfortunate, was wrong. There's absolutely nothing that he has stopped. He could have stopped or anything.
Okay, Mr. Manye, with respect,
Yeah.
that was a very long explanation that
Yeah.
didn't actually speak to what Mr. Maseko, what happened to him. He was
How
removed,
could he
and
instruct him
Mr.
to
Manye,
do-
sorry,
Yeah,
you
but
were
let me
waiting
make
in the
this
car
point.
park, as he was
How-
clearing his office.
How did he instruct him? Do you remember the exact words?
There was a phone call to Mr. Maseko's superior.
Yes. Yeah. What did he say to him?
I don't have the report in
Let
front
me
of me.
remind you what he said to him. He said to him, awusize labafana bamaguta. This was tabled at the commission. What does that mean? Help these Gupta brothers. What does that mean? As an accounting officer, if a politician says to me, help so-and-so, that help, what does it mean? Does help so-and-so mean be corrupt? Does help so-and-so mean cut all the rules? Help so-and-so means point them in the right direction, tell them how process works and all of that. That's all President Zuma ever said to him. Why
I'm sure it helps that they were his friends, because unfortunately,
So this
if
is
I
what
was
we
doing
call-
business with a government department, the president wouldn't have instructed
This
the
is
CEO
what we call
to help.
innuendo and conjecture. It's exactly that. You see what we're saying? It's exactly what Zondo wrote in his report.
But
Exactly
the president said help them.
Yeah.
That's an instruction.
Yes. Yes. Help. Why? What's corrupt about that? Help somebody.
It's called the PFMA, Mr. Manyu. You
What?
know it very
I
well.
know PFMA. Which section are you talking about? Section 38 of the PFMA.
It means that you can't just go to anyone and pick them up off the street to do business with you. You
No.
have to have a tender process.
No, but you don't. No. Let
So
me.
how are you helping them? Are you helping them win tenders, or are you helping them get the tender
No, but
process
you see-
started? Or this
the-
is what I don't understand.
Yeah,
when you
let
say
me
it's
help.
conjecture.
If you give me a chance, I'll help you. When you say help somebody, it means even tell them that there is a tender process. You are helping this person. It means tell them how the process works. You are helping this person. You know? So there's nothing corrupt about that. I can tell you this as we speak now. Politicians continue to tell their DJs, please help the people, because politicians are the face of the public. The public goes to the politicians. The politicians must go to the accounting officer and say, help the people. Now, if every DG, when you say help the people, that would then mean be corrupt. That DG is really stupid.
In your time as at GCIS, did you help anyone else other than the
I
Gupta
help a
family?
lot of people.
Can you name one company, one
I've lost
example?
count. I've lost count.
Thank you, Mr. Manyu.
Yeah, it's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mani, are you denying that the former president is named adversely and in quite critical ways in the parts on ESCOM, Bosasa, SAA, perhaps AXA, definitely the section on the ANC, and definitely the section on the interference with the authorities of the banks? Are you denying that the former president is so named in those parts?
Those are the details. Those are the details that will be dealt with by the review team. Those are details will be dealt with by the review team.
Just to follow up to Ferrell's question.
Yes.
Would the former president also deny? Would the former president also deny that he did everything that the Guptas wanted him to do, as contained in the report?
Definitely. That's just a hogwash. Absolute hogwash. Whoever says, you know, these people just make statements. People just make statements. Support that statement. How did this happen? You see an example. Let me give you an example. It was reported that Mbalula screamed in some NEC meeting and said Gupta told him about his appointment and all of that. Trevor Manuel said, Mbalula, go. Now this was your best chance for your theory. And what happened to that? Mbalula goes to the public protector, Tulima Tonzel. His exact words in his transcript, I vehemently deny. That's Mbalula. Vehemently deny. That's in the transcript, written in that report. That's in the transcript. So what evidence do we have for this kind of a notion? And this is what I'm saying to you, that all the people that went there didn't have anything tangible. This is why every other page, Zondo is recommending further investigation, investigate this, prosecute this. It's all about that. There's absolutely nothing. And that's why I'm saying to you, here you are, all of you, give me something tangible that links President Zuma.
Why did Mr. Zuma lie about his dismissal of Nhlanhla Nene as Minister of Finance? Why did he lie about that?
I think, you see, I think one of the biggest, what shall I call it? One of the biggest pities, actually, I call it this way, that South Africa has got now, the reason we're having this problem, is that Justice Zondo denied President Zuma the opportunity to explain himself on this. He was in the commission for 2 days, by the way. 3 days, thank you. Okay, no, he didn't. He went there for 3 days and he was explaining up until he picked up that Zondo was biased. And he said, I want to continue doing this. Can I just have a neutral chair? That's the only thing that got President Zuma in jail. He wanted justice, he wanted fairness. He was just saying, can I please have somebody neutral? And if you can see here the amount of hatred that Justice Zondo has for President Zuma, you can see that President Zuma was actually justified. Yes, sir.
Morning, Bramani. Morning, how are you?
Good and you, sir?
I'm okay. Can you
If you can just raise your voice a bit.
Chief. Can you just explain what is the meaning of state capture with the context of Zuma Foundation? Is it a pseudo government that Zuma created with the Guptas? Can you just break it down? Maybe Ramaphosa can always assist us, and Mam Lulu can always assist me.
Which media house are you from, sorry?
Hey, so far it's in Australia. News Modo.
Sorry?
News Modo. News MODO. It is an online publication.
Okay.
Yes, Brahman.
So what, I didn't follow a question. What exactly I was saying?
What is the meaning of state capture in Zuma Foundation's contest? How do you explain it to me as
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm not a traditional journalist, I'm a conventional one, so
Yeah.
I need to take serious stories up front.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Firstly, let me give you President Zuma's definition because this is his foundation. President Zuma is of the view that when you say state in the first instance, you imply the three arms of the state, the executive, the judiciary, and parliament. That is the state. So President Zuma's argument is that if you say the state is captured, then if you have to have a proper investigation of the state capture, then you must line up the judiciary, then you must line up parliament, then you must line up the executive, then you will do a proper investigation of the state capture. So that is his understanding of the state capture. And he's saying, if you are saying the state is captured, fine, but then the questions must go to the state. Don't just pick up one person and say state capture, then maybe call it a Zuma capture, if that's what you want to do. But if you want to give it the title of a state capture, then the three arms are implicated. Then let's investigate the three arms.
So is there any elements of a pseudo-government that Mr. Zuma and the Guptas created? Maybe the underworld politics or forces of darkness?
The pseudo-government. What pseudo-government now?
The pseudo-government can be a deep state, whereby a certain cabal from the leadership creates its own.
Yeah, I think maybe just
conspiracy.
that. Okay, look. I think what we are here for is the statement.
Yes.
Can I just ask people to ask questions that relate to the statement? If we're going to go into blue sky stuff,
No,
it's not going to
thank
help
you,
us.
Brahman.
Okay.
Can I direct a question to Ms. Zuma? Mr. Duzilia Zuma, given the fact that Mr. Zuma's legal team have lost all the applications that they brought before the Constitutional Court related to this case, do you have any confidence that this same legal team will at all be able to be successful? Thank you.
100%.
I was not even listening. Yeah. Okay. Any other question? I think one of the things to point out in this Zondo report, because we argue that the report is factional, the report is biased, and all of that, and you should be. I thought you'd say, give us evidence, and challenge us and would have given you evidence. The first evidence would have given you is that, in fact, in the view of the foundation, President Ramaphosa perjured himself in the commission in two ways. The first way, in fact, one he perjured, the other one he actually violated his oath of office, but he was allowed to get away with this because he's a friend, seemingly, of the Chief Justice. The first issue is that President Ramaphosa, in the commission, he denied the involvement of, when he was discussing the issue of the deployment committee of the ANC. He said that, no, Judge, in this deployment, this is what we do. We don't get involved with judges and all of that when that question was being discussed. And thanks to the DA, that it then transpired later, some minutes of the deployment committee came about. And in those minutes, it was very clear that members of the ANC were actually briefed to support certain appointments of certain judges. Excuse me. This is contrary to what President Ramaphosa had said in the commission, but he was allowed to get away with this. You know, this is just 101 perjury. He was allowed to get away with it. Why? And yet, Justice Zondo, for all the people that are on other factions, he has choice words for things that he thinks they've done wrong. That's the first thing. The second thing, President Ramaphosa, in there, when they were dealing with the issue of members of parliament who seemingly get punished for voting their consciences, he was there explaining that, no, I'm an organizational man, and I'm way on the side of the mandate of the organization. The oath of office of a president and any member of parliament enjoins them to do two things. You must be loyal to the constitution of the republic and to the country, not to your party. Zondo allowed him to show loyalty to the ANC because I suppose Zondo wanted him to get a bit more support within the ANC. So allowed him to do this. A man that blatantly speaks against his oath of office in front of the highest judge in the land is allowed to do this. What kind of inquiry was this? You know? I mean, a simple thing of even the issue of whether he knew the donors or he didn't. Surely, that's perjury. For Ramaphosa to say he didn't know the donors when he was going to the various dinners and all of that, and for him to turn around and say, I don't know, who was inviting you to the dinner parties? I mean, is it really now, I think our intelligence is being insulted here. You get invited to dinner parties, you know who you sit with in the main table, and then you don't know who the donor is. Really now? And Justice Zondo allows him. And you will sit here as media, you think that this report is the best thing since a slice of bread. How could you? How could you? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. I have just a question of clarity, probably to you and Senior Counsel Bofu. Assuming, or let us suppose then, that based on the, is it 5 or 6 grounds that you table to challenge the validity of this report, suppose then somehow the JSC or any other organ that the foundation may appeal to finds in favor of the foundation and declares the whole process invalid. Is the foundation saying then that the whole process must be started from scratch, chaired and led by a person at least the foundation is not suspicious of in terms of integrity and independence? Is that what the foundation is going to be calling for? Thank you.
No, it's just calling for, if all of those things are proved right, maybe there will be ground for impeachment. Maybe he should just be impeached. Yeah, that's simple.
If I may follow up, thank you
In
for that.
fact,
clarity.
just to couple with that point, the foundation is also saying that we are going to be briefing our lawyers and we'll make this announcement very soon. That we even think that the appointment of Chief Justice Zondo as a Chief Justice was irrational and was unlawful. It cannot be. It cannot be that you get the entire JSC to sit and sift through 4 or 5 candidates and they give you the one that they have looked at objectively and you decide that no, with powers vested in me, I take this one. What happened to the principle that we were told that applies to President Zuma of rationality, that he's got no, what do you call it, prerogative. We were told President Zuma's got no prerogative. This is a constitutional court, rule of law, rationality and all of that. What happened to that? Where is media to ask these questions? I mean, how can, if you look at the composition of the JSC, there are judges, there are attorneys, there are advocates, there are politicians, there's everybody there. It's a proper organization. It's a proper, well-balanced organization. They have scores, they have papers, they score people and all of that. It's an objective process they run there. They run a process. They say, we think this is the candidate. You decide to go and take number last, and there's no upheaval. This is wrong. So for us as a foundation, we are going to be challenging that appointment. We think Chief Justice Zondo has been appointed unlawfully. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up and last question also.
Just last clarification.
Yes, no, thank you. Sorry, I'm afraid I can't answer your question. I just want to clarify that, as Mr. Manyi explained, that they're going to brief their own legal team. We are not here representing the foundation. My only reason here is because my client is not here, and he asked me to come and explain to you and apologize to you why he's not here. Yeah, so that's really, so we're not, the foundation is a separate legal entity, and we don't speak for it.
Thank you for clarity, Council. Mr. Man, just a follow-up question as well, because there was a question that touched on state capture, and I think in your response you mentioned that if you talk about state, you talk about the different levels of the state. Will it be, or maybe it's an unfair question, please feel free to say so. Does the foundation then have a position with regard to state capture, that it needs not be confined to a certain period? Because to some people, when you talk about state capture, in its independence and true originality, it probably should go far way back. Will it be a position of the foundation? Because I once heard the president, the former president, Malala, back then, also mentioning a point to that effect, that when we talk state capture, there's an assumption that state capture starts with democracy. When do we deal with state capture dating back to before democracy, to explain even some of the economical structures that we see in place that somehow have negative socio-economic impact to certain type and group of people? Will it be a position of the foundation that the state capture process, if it were to be redone, does need to be expanded? Thank you.
Yeah, no, we agree with that sentiment. We agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. In fact, the entire apartheid state was captured in the first instance. You know, in fact, there's a view articulated by others as well. I might be one of those views. I might be part of that view, that there's never been a time in this country when the state was not captured. You know, so yeah, I'm on record in my personal capacity saying this. And maintain this position. But what you are saying is correct. We're rounding up now.
Yeah.
We're going to take fresh hands. If anybody has not asked a question, we're rounding
I
up.
have the mic here.
Okay, let's start with this lady.
Yeah, hi. Mathilde Boussion for the French newspaper Le Monde. Last year, when former President Zuma was in prison, that was followed by several days of deadly violence. You say you're going to challenge the report. If those challenges are not successful, are you afraid this could lead to new violence?
Look, it's a very interesting question. If we look at what caused the violence, there was an independent panel that did some work on this thing. And one of the key findings, which for some reason media did not profile, is the fact that the national intelligence agencies of this country, when they wanted to submit the reports, apparently there was a National Security Council meeting chaired by Ramaphosa. This is a Security Council that is supposed to take all intelligence information and make sure that they can preempt all kinds of things. But the independent panel of experts say that Ramaphosa did not convene those meetings. As a result, information that could have assisted to deal with this matter and nip it in the bud was not processed because the structure that was supposed to sit and deal with these things was not sitting. And this thing is there in black and white. But media, because Ramaphosa is dealing with the media, you've just left him free. Instead of asking him, why didn't you chair this commission? Because you would have preempted this. So it's the same situation. Volatility in the country, if you've got a proper intelligence, you can always preempt it. So if we continue to have the kind of incompetence that we're having, anything is possible. But if we have a competent government, they can preempt things and deal with them. So it should not be a problem. It's just a subject of a competent government. That's all there is to it. Yes, ma'am.
I would have wanted to ask this question directly to the former president, but since he's not here, maybe you could answer on his behalf. He was close to the Guptas, and we know the Guptas have been arrested. Has he got any opinion on that? During your interaction with him, has he said anything about the arrest and the pending extradition? Thank you.
No, President Zuma has not discussed Guptas with us at all. So he has not discussed it. He has nothing. He has not said anything. We have not discussed it. I think maybe he's got too many other things. The matter did not arise.
Yeah.
Is there anything important? Okay, let's conclude then this briefing, and you've seen what President Zuma is going to be taking forward, and we really want to say that on all the things that Judge Zondo is saying about parole being questionable, obviously President Zuma disagrees with that, and this is a matter that's before court. It's really unfortunate that Judge Zondo dabbled into that. Yeah, so, yeah, it's very clear that Judge Zondo has taken sides on the issues. And we are, as a foundation, very concerned about his credibility as a judge because he seems to have chosen sides. There's a side you almost can predict what is it that Justice Zondo can say on any particular issue, you know. And in fact, in conclusion, even if you look at his view is not very different from the views of the AfriForums, Helen Suzman Foundation, Justice Andalo, all of those NGOs that are always safe SA type NGOs. It would appear that Justice Zondo is part of that entourage. So indeed, we've got a problem in the judiciary. With those few words, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Maybe this is
Yeah, this is mine.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Ah, no problem, brother. Trying. Go on, Baba.